Good evening from Vietnam. Good morning to you, Marcia. Thanks a lot for spending your early morning joining our Inside Sharing and share your stories to our global audience. And then on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Now you have a new friend in Ho Chi Minh City, and if you come back to Vietnam for the second time, you have a new friend, new family here waiting for you. So please make it, on your bucket list.
I will. I really look forward to seeing much more of the country.
And since you've been to Hanoi before, you know our culture. It's very honored if we can have you to do a little introduction about who you are and the work you are doing. Marcia, can you do it first?
Well, technically, I spend a lot of the time teaching and coaching, but I see it as a way of helping people to learn and grow. Because that's what I've done for all my professional career for nearly 40 years, was trying to find the way to help people to really learn and grow. So when I found coaching, that was it. That was the sweet spot. And I studied it and got another degree to understand how it works. And I think it's the best way that we can help each other learn and grow, at least today.
So helping people learn and grow for the past 40 years, right? You have a phenomenal career, phenomenal achievements with a lot of amazing things that you introduced to us in 45 seconds, Marcia. And it's not fair for our audience. So we're gonna dive in deeper to understand the journey that leading to what you are doing today. All right?
Okay. Sure.
So allow us to travel time, shall we?
Okay.
Alrighty. So when I was very, very little, Marcia, I wanted to become an astronaut. So jumping in different planets seems very, very cool, but life didn't give me any chance at all to do the things that I always loved to do. So when you was little, what was your dream about yourself in the future, though?
Yeah. Well, I think it wasn't clear till the second grade. I won a poetry contest. And so at that point, I always had this dream I would be a published author. So besides, what I'm always learning, but I like to share it in my writing. And when my publisher first agreed to publish my first book, I just cried. Oh. I said, this is a lifelong dream. So writing is one of my passions. So I had a sense that I would teach, but I didn't know who or what, but I always liked to. Teacher probably came next, writer, teacher, and coaching I didn't even know about. So so I always had this, but I didn't know the purpose why. That took quite a bit of life experiences before I recognized what I wanted to do with my writing and teaching. So
So tell us, how did you figure out what you want to do with your writing and teaching? How did you figure it out?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's an interesting life story. I went through a very dark time as a teenager, not knowing where I was going and who I was, and the school I went to, they were doing lots of drugs, and it was a hard time knowing what I would be doing in this life that was significant, or what could I do. And I really went down this dark tunnel, and I ended up turning 20 in jail. And what happened there was it was actually my cellmates who had not much in their life. I had so much more that I could use, that I could, be with. I mean, their lives were very, very difficult. And one day I was feeling very sorry for myself. I ruined my life. I was never going to amount to anything. My probation officer said that I was useless. And she got up and she pushed me against the wall and said, "You have no idea who you are and what you have." She said, "You're so smart. You're so strong. You care about people deeply. And you can make a difference because you have the privilege that we don't have. It's your responsibility to know who you are in here so you can make it out there. And you know, she changed my life. She gave me a second chance. So what I knew at that point was that I wanted to help other people to learn who they were, to understand their potential and what they could accomplish and how to get over their beliefs holding them back, their fears. And that was always my mission. I just, again, wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to teach, I was going to write. And then when I found coaching, you know, that was, okay, here it is. That's going to help me to fully carry out my mission of helping people to be the best they can be.
Beautiful.
So,
allow me to bring you back to the dark time. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So back in the cell, what did you do to your cellmate that make her so supporting and make sure that you will change? Yeah. What did you do?
Well, you know, it was an interesting thing that back in the, this was a long time ago, you know, almost 50 years ago. Yeah, I don't know, it's a long time ago. But back then, there was very much segregation in the jail, and they put me with the Hispanics and the blacks because I'm Jewish, and they said I wasn't, I wasn't white. So they really said I was a minority. I was, bad. But it was good because I was in these cells with these very strong women that didn't have much education, much money, and I wanted to learn from them, and so I spent a lot of time really getting to know them and playing a lot of cards, and I was really good at playing cards. And so, it's like my cellmates just kind of embraced me because they felt like, well, you're being discriminated against like us, and you play a good game of cards. Not much to do then, and I even wrote poetry for them to send to their children and their spouses, and she was actually the leader of the biggest gang in the entire jail, the tough ones. But she took me under her wing. But that's when I learned that, every person you meet on the street, there's some value, there's some gem, there's some beautiful thing inside of them. I don't care who they are. And these women were so beautiful. And so we got very, very close. And I kept wanting to make a difference in the jail, and the people in the jail didn't want to listen to me. So she even saw that I could fight for them, and that I was getting my power back. So I think that seeing the great value in her, but also knowing she didn't have the privilege I had, that when she said that you have the responsibility to go out there and make a difference because you can do this, and where we can't, because of a lot of people don't talk about status in the United States, but it's clearly there. And so again, I felt like she had so befriended me, took care of me, and helped me to see who I am from my essence, and that I could make a difference in the world. So she gave me this gift. And the day I was released, I turned to her and I said, I'll never see you again. I'm kind of sad. And she goes, let me tell you something. No one here, of all my tribe, nobody here wants to ever see you again. We want you to go out there and make it. Do not come back here.
What's her name?
Well, you know what? I don't remember her last name. Her name was Vicky.
Vicky.
But I actually wrote on Amazon, I have a Kindle book of the time I spent there and what I learned, called Unexpected Angels, that I don't tell a lot of people about, but because I disguised her name in the book, I don't remember what her real name is.
Wow.
And so, and I think it's important, I don't even know if she's still around. It was a tough life she was living. So
my grandma always told me that we have so many angels around us, right? So when the time comes and the angel appears, and she appear into your life at the right time to lift you up, so that you bear the responsibility to lift other people up and make them learn and grow, right? So but the getting back is never an easy path.
No.
Yes.
No.
And a lot of our audience would love to hear how you can make that turnaround. Marcia, can you share? Yes.
Well, she gave me that kind of anchor to hold on to, but I had been a very serious drug addict, and so when I came back out, I had to reconstruct my life. And it was not easy, and there was a lot of, the people I knew kept wanting to bring me back into their world. And so, what I finally had to do was I shut down socially for a year. And I knew my strengths were school, academics, and my father gave me a job so I could have, pay for school. So that was the best thing I could do, was I just focused on school. And I said, I am no longer that person. So I didn't say I'm an addict, blah, blah, blah. I said, I am not that person. I am a strong, smart woman. Yeah, and that I can get through this. And school was always something I loved and I could do. So I went back to the university, and within 4 years I graduated summa cum laude from Arizona State University. But here's what happened: another angel showed up in my life.
Yes.
So I just focused on school. I was like, I can't talk to people. I can't trust myself. I can't, so I was focused on school. And it was about a year, maybe actually a little longer, that I was taking a night class, and it was an advanced class. It wasn't a large class. And I was after the class, it was on the second floor. So I got in the elevator, and one of my classmates jumped in the elevator with me. And he said to me, go take a bath. And I'm like, do I smell? I mean, what's the problem? Go take a bath. He says, go take a bath. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. He said, I know what you're doing. He says, I've worked with addicts and ex-prisoners. And he says, you're hiding from life. But I've watched you in class and you're doing so well. He says, you're okay now. You're okay. Go take a bath, light candles, and just, come back to life. Enjoy yourself. Take care of yourself. And it was so amazing because a week later, my younger brother called and said, I ran into an old friend of yours from school, from grade school, who would love to see you again. And so I called her, and so we started hanging out and going places so I could come back to life and build a new community around me. So there had to be a little transition to where I could prove to myself who I was, because it's who you are. You have to shift who you are to truly make a change in your life. You can't just change what you do. So for me to fully embrace that I'm that smart, strong woman that my cellmate told me, that I had to see it for myself, to go back and start doing well in school and start building my life again to where I can say, yes, I am this person and I'm going to accomplish great things. So even, I went to graduate school. It was in another city, and I didn't know anybody, and it was scary. But I kept saying, no, I'm smart, I'm strong, I care about people, I'm going to make a difference. So every time I was afraid, I just told myself this mantra, and I started adding to it and said, I'm inspirational and I'm funny, and and we should not be humble when we're claiming our strengths. That's really important, because people say, I can't say that. And when I teach women's leadership classes, and I teach one in China every year, I have them write the 10 character traits that make them who they are, that help them accomplish great things. And then they have to say it out loud. And they're so uncomfortable. But I said, if you don't say it, you don't claim it. And so we really work on claiming who I am and bringing that out into the world. And then, as my cellmate said, I can do anything out here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Bring me back to that elevator moment. Okay. Did you really take a shower and lighted the candle and enjoy a bath?
A bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I soaked in the bath, but I did.
Yeah. What was in your head at that moment?
Well, that somebody acknowledged me and my value, and said, it's okay now. Those were the important words. He said, you're okay now. You've made the transition. You are in a new place. You're okay. You can relax. And so I felt it. I felt what he was saying, that, okay, I've let the past go. And now I'm creating my future. So, yeah, okay. So I went, and it wasn't about the bath. It was about self-care that I deserved at this point. And I don't know if it's about deserve, but that I needed to relax, enjoy, and appreciate this life that I was now creating. Instead of fighting against it, I have to, change my life and avoid people. That I've already stepped into this new life, and I needed to appreciate it. So that's what he gave me.
And then he must be another angel for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Lift you up at the right moment by giving just a simple metaphor, but for you to start seeing, and by the kind words that he said, it's okay. Small little word, right? But a lot of us are now in needing those kind of words, needing those people to come to show up and tap in our shoulder and say, hey, you're doing good. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And it's not who you expect. That it might be a teacher, it might be a spiritual leader, but it could just be somebody on the street corner.
I know.
I mean, my angels were like prison inmates and prostitutes and a college student that I didn't even know. So it's like, you've got to look. There's so many people that could be your teacher or your angel. So just keep an eye out. Like, okay, so who is it that's here today to give me something I should be aware of, or to teach me a lesson? So we have to be conscious all day, every day.
Yeah. Yes, I have an angel. Her name is Emily, and she was about 6-7 years old back in 2001. That's when I came to America for school, and I came from Vietnam, so I have zero English. So she was my neighbor home. So we have a driveway between the two houses, right? And she tried to talk, because after school she's at home, and then I also at home. So we look at each other. She tried to talk to me, but I tried to avoid talking to her. So one day she say, hey Ha, were you avoiding talking to me because of your language capability? I said yes. So she told me one thing I will never forget. She told me that I'll teach you. And at 6 years old, I'll teach you. I'll teach you. So you're here, I'll teach you. And I was like, oh my gosh, my life is so blessed with so many amazing angels like this. How can I be bad?
That's so great. They do show up. we so often are just looking at people that disappoint us or people that we're afraid of, or, instead of seeing, oh, who knows? I mean, even the person that I'm angry at, maybe that anger is showing me there's something I need to learn here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So getting back to society, right? After a year plus avoiding, totally shut down, and thanks to the gentleman for saying,
Yeah.
that kind words to you. What happened after that, Marcia?
Well, I did go on to graduate school in communications, and it was really interesting. It was really broadcasting, but it was in San Francisco, and it's a very expensive city. And my father was very sick, and so I came back to Phoenix, and I needed a job, and I ended up getting, with my broadcasting degree, a job pushing television sets around a psychiatric hospital. So I was in charge of the audio visual, that they could use for their meetings. And so, but it was interesting because it was a part of the training department.
Oh.
And the woman who managed the training, the corporate training for this hospital system, she fired the only trainer. They got in a fight. And then she decided to get her doctorate. So she dumped the entire training department in my lap, and said, I know you can do it. So again, it's like, I don't know, did she believe that, or she just didn't want to do it anymore? I don't know. But my first job was management training. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I was reading the books and, but I sat down in my classes and I said, so I know the structure of this training, but I've never been a manager. And so I'm going to share with you the structure, but let's open it up to conversation and learn from each other. So fortunately, because I didn't know, I didn't pretend I knew everything. But then I decided after, a few years, and I had some experience, that I needed another degree to understand how to design training instead of just using packages. Because from there I got another job. Well, actually, I'd started my second master's before my second job in adult learning and instructional design, because I was like now entrenched. I like training. I'm like, I guess this is my path. It was an accidental career, but I needed to know what I was doing. So I got a second master's, and in the meantime, took a job in high tech. And, in the 80s, everything was transitioning to smart technology. And, there was a lot of opportunity. And even though I knew nothing about computers, they said, but you can develop training, and, you can write, and we need someone to come in and just work with the experts and develop the training. Well, I was already working on that degree. So one thing that I've learned is, like, you don't have to know everything before you step into it. So it's like, I didn't know what they were doing, but I knew I could figure it out. So as long as you trust yourself, I don't know, I can figure it out. So even the job after that was semiconductor, and it's like, I didn't know anything about semiconductors, but I could figure it out. And always they said, well, we're hiring you, again, because of your special skills, but also because you jump in and you get it done. So it was like that energy, like, don't be afraid to make mistakes, just get in there and learn. And I moved up in management in both those tech companies fairly quickly, and global companies, and got to travel and and learn how to design technical training as well as communication and leadership training. So it was that accidental career that sent me on the path of management and communication training. And again, the whole desire, that second master's in adult learning, is triggered my thirst for understanding. Well, how can I teach better? How can I help people learn and grow? So I found my pathway of helping people learn and grow. That it wasn't going to be broadcasting. It was going to be training. And so I've been on that path ever since. And in technical companies where it was mostly men that didn't know how to talk to each other. So I was the woo-woo person that came in that helped them get together, but I helped them succeed. And they saw that, so they acknowledged me. Even if they didn't like what I did, I still kept, trying to, here's how you do it, let's learn together. And fortunately, my second company, I was with them when they went public, so I had enough money to start my own business.
That was what
because they basically told me I'd hit the glass ceiling. They weren't going to promote me anymore. And so I'm like, okay, fine, time to go start my own business.
Marcia, I interview a lot of business leaders around the world. There's two things that they regret not doing yet. One was starting their own business because they've been successfully leading organizations, multi-country organizations.
Right.
And the second was writing their own book to share and then share the experience. You had both. So allow me to bring you to the moment that you decide to start your own company. Because back then, even if you hit the glass ceiling, you can still join in another tech companies and then start a different position with the right mentality you had already. You can figure it out, right? But you decide to go into the watering again and start your own business. So what message did you talk to yourself back then?
My family for generations were entrepreneurs. One of the reasons my grandparents had to come to the United States where they were living in Ukraine, and it was during the Bolshevik takeover of the Russian states, and my grandparents were merchants. They sold things, and they didn't. So they were Jewish merchants, and so they would be killed. So, but even when they came to the United States, they started their own business. And one thing I notice here, there's so many immigrants, and you would know this, that come here. It's difficult to get work, so they start their own business. And I find that the most successful and dedicated and determined, we're going to make this happen, are particularly Asian women. They start their own businesses here in the U.S., and it's just amazing. And so that was in my blood. And my father was an entrepreneur. And when my grandparents came to Arizona, my dad said, come here, there's a lot of opportunity. They bought overalls and chickens, and they put fresh eggs in their pockets every day and went door to door selling eggs. So I didn't see the risk in doing that. It was something I knew I always wanted to do. Now, and so that because of that, I knew I wasn't going to stay in corporate life all my life, that I wanted to be on a bigger stage, helping more people than just one company. And I'd had enough of the corporate craziness. So, the hierarchy and all of that. I really wanted to have the power to create what I wanted to create. So did it take courage? A lot of people said that you're so brave. I didn't see it as bravery. I'd always had a plan. In fact, I told my boss, the day he hired me in my last job, I said, I'm going to be here about 5 years and then I'm going to start my own business and write books. And then the day I resigned, he was shocked. And I said, I told you 5 years ago that I wanted to start my own business and write books. And he says, but I didn't believe you because nobody does that.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, you know what? No, I do that. And it's fine that people stay in places that if they're challenged. But again, when I talk about women, my doctoral dissertation was on smart, strong women in the workplace, and they tend to go from job to job and start their own businesses much more frequently than men. Because their great drivers are motion. I have to have new challenges. I have to keep learning, and it has to be significant. It has to be meaningful. So what I found with the women, that instead of titles and money, that it was motion and meaning. So even when I have coached, so like I was coaching this woman in China who had reached a very high level in her company, but she was bored to death. And that's what happens with a lot of women. They get very bored. And I said, and she said, I'm tired of the politics here. I just, I don't want to be here anymore. But I have a family. I have to take care of my parents, my kids. And, I make the most money. And everyone says you shouldn't leave. You've got such a good salary and a great position. And I said to her, should. You don't like this job, but you're living by everybody's shoulds. You're living by your friends who tell you not to leave. You're living by, your society. Have you asked your family? And she said, no. I said, well, maybe they would support you. And I said, you've reached this level. And exactly like what you just said to me, could you not find more challenge somewhere else with all your experience? Well, I don't know. I shouldn't leave. Well, 2 hours later, after the coaching, she came back to me and said, okay, I got it. I had to sit with it. You're right. I'm living by shoulds instead of what I want. And of course, I can either get a job somewhere else or even start working on creating my own consulting firm. So we live by too many shoulds. Too many shoulds. I shouldn't do that. I have a family to support. That's what I always hear with the men. I have a family to support. Have you asked your family? Would they support you in doing something else? Usually they say yes, because they don't want to see you burnt out and angry. So look at your shoulds and see how they're getting in the way of your dreams.
Beautiful. Yes, I agree totally that a lot of us are living in the conformity, right? So the should do, and it's the one that not letting us freely doing what we love doing. And we have the mantra that do what you love doing, but that mantra is actually at the moment is do what we think we should be doing instead of love doing more.
Absolutely. So
imagine if people can really truly doing what they love doing, how happy they would be, and how beautiful the product, the service that they can bring to offer. That would be amazing.
Right. Well, then we can put it has passion and meaning. And why are we here anyway? So and whatever. Like it was so interesting. The last day of my job, I had all these people come to me, and nobody asked me to stay, but they all said, "How do you have the courage to leave?" Because see, I left 2 years of unvested stock on the table. I left a lot of money, but I had enough. And they said, how do you have the courage to do this? To leave your job, to leave your salary, to leave this money behind. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to go try to do something I want, start a business. And if it doesn't work, I'll go get a job. What's the worst that could happen? I try something, it doesn't work, bummer. I have to go get a job with someone else. So one of the questions I ask in coaching, it's so interesting that just to ask what's really the worst that could happen. And if that happened, what would you do?
Yeah.
Just like if it did, I'd go get a job. There's always something else. You're not going to be homeless. It's really not the worst that will probably happen. But even if it did, what would you do? And what else could happen? Those simple questions, because you see, our brain doesn't truly allow us to do introspection, to question. We always come up with the answers that make us feel better, not uncomfortable. And this is why coaching is so powerful. We need someone outside of ourselves to ask us the questions, to bring our thinking out here,
Yeah.
to look at it, you know, and that's the only way we can truly make decisions, is having someone else help us think. We do not think well on our own. So
Marcia, between publishing your first book, which is the dream that you had in second grade, and coaching, which one comes first?
Well, coaching was just a vehicle. So it's not about coaching. It was about the whole making a difference, you know. And so coaching just happened to be the thing that I found that made the best difference, you know. So I wouldn't say that, oh, I found my, you know, this is it. I mean, and even the writing, I will continue writing, but I don't know that I'm going to write another book. I've got 5, and I'm almost 70. It's like, maybe enough's enough, you know. But I will continue to make a difference. Yeah.
My question was about the pivotal moment in your life, because you make yourself become world recognizable coach, right? And I wanted to know, you know, you found the love in coaching first before you published your first book, or the first book came first?
No. Well, yeah, I found so coaching. It was the last day that day I resigned, and all those people were saying that to me. I'd never heard of coaching. It was 1995, and I can't even remember who did this. Another angel sent me an article about this new thing called coaching, you know, that was just coming out into the world. And I'm like, well, this sounds interesting, you know, and I'm always, when things come to me, it's like, well, just check it out, try it. So I called. There was only 2 coaching schools in the world then. So I called one of them, and they said, come to this free class and watch a demonstration. And after I saw the coaching demonstration, it's like, oh, there's something different here. And so, and at the same time, a year later, actually, Daniel Goleman came out with his book, Emotional Intelligence. So I started learning how to coach and really delving into emotional intelligence, the power of emotions have on our decision making, and that sense of who I am. So I kept researching and reading, and it inspired me to get my doctorate on understanding learning in the brain and how coaching works. So my passion is more about, again, of understanding how people learn and grow. How does it work in the brain? I love researching and reading, you know, the latest about that. And then I like to share it. So the writing isn't just to sit down and write. The writing is about sharing, you know. And so my first book was actually a self-published, based on, I was starting to teach emotional intelligence workshops. So I recorded a workshop, I had it transcribed, and I wrote my first book, Outsmart Your Brain. You know, and I've since rewrote it, and it still sells well. So it was my second book that my publisher, it was based on my dissertation on smart, strong women in the workplace. And my publisher, we met at a coaching conference, and I told her about my research. She said, it sounds like a book. So she's the one that made me cry, because I wanted to be published by someone else. But Outsmart Your Brain is still out there doing well. So, and that's been translated as well, yeah.
Outsmart Our Brain was literally the first book that you published, right? And the second one was written by somebody else.
Yeah, and that was because I really wanted to put down all my thoughts into a book. And have a book available for people, because you teach a class, it's 30 people, but you sell a book, it's thousands, you know.
What years was that published?
The first year I published it was, you know, I don't even remember, maybe 99, but I republished it in 2015. So there's a new edition in 2015.
So 1999, your first dream came true. Your first
Yeah, yeah.
dream as a second grader.
Well, and that was really just a small version. Yeah, I really adapted it. I think it was like 2001, 2002, where I made it really into a book instead of a booklet. So I would say it didn't really come out to 2002. Yeah.
Wow.
That I really could say, this is a book. Yeah.
That's another milestone that you accomplished. It's really amazing. That is when you went and studied for your PhD. Yes. And then knowingly through this conversation that you really love academia, but going for PhD is really a lengthy process with a lot of commitment, Marcia. So what did you, how did you decide to go for PhD then?
Well, I love school, so fortunately, one of my highest values is learning. A lot of people don't have that. They don't love school. I've loved school all my life. But it was interesting back in the 80s when after I finished my second master's, the one of my professors who ran the chair of the department said you should get your doctorate. And I said, no, I want to go out and get experience first so I know, how to apply it, that I'm not just an academic. And he said to me, you will never get it if you leave. If you leave now, you will never go back to school. So it took me 20 years.
Wow.
I said to him, no, I will. Unfortunately, after I finished my doctorate, I went back to Arizona State to tell him I finally did it, and he passed away. So I never got to tell him. But it was the main driver was this new science called neuroscience was coming forth. We didn't know how to scan the brain and see how we really think till 1995. Okay, and that was again exactly when I was coming out into coaching and emotional intelligence. So I said, this is a new science and I want to know more. So it wasn't that I was heading, and in fact, my doctorate is not a PhD, it's a PsyD, it's a clinical doctorate of psychology. So it was how do we do this? How do we adapt this? How do we work with people? So it's clinical based. In understanding how people sabotage themselves when their brain gets in the way, what's the difference between a diagnostic, a mental illness, and us just, having a healthy-ish brain, but it gets in our way. So it was really more about my curiosity, not getting the degree. Wow. Yeah.
So the curiosity that leading you to the teaching, to the writing, the teaching, right? And then through a lot of amazing things. And you say you have 5 books already. You're not gonna plan to write the 6th one. So, but the future we don't know yet. So let's talk about the newest one. Congratulations for the new release on the end of January, right? This year.
Yeah,
yes,
just
20 days.
Yeah, it's been just a couple weeks.
Yeah, 20 days. I saw it's January 30th.
January 30th.
Yeah.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
What is that book about? Breakthrough Coaching.
Well, my last book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem, took off a life of its own. It's been translated in 7 languages. It's sold tens of thousands of copies around the world. It's like so many coaches knew about it, and it changed the way they coach, is what they always tell me, and I'm very proud of that book. I had coaching.com is an online platform, and they said, we want to create a mastery program, which I'll be starting at the end of February. Why don't you write a book that goes along with that? So I had a platform to create a new program, but also because I'm always learning, when I looked at Coach the Person, Not the Problem, I said, well, it's a good book, but I know so much more. And I need to share. It's like the next edition. I need to share everything I've learned and what maybe even wasn't quite right in coach the person. And I don't say quite right, but the emphasis. So like coach the person, the last chapter was on, how do we maintain our presence and create that connection? Whereas now it's the first chapter, that how we are collectively together is the energy is so much the most important thing, that it creates the safety and trust for them to open up. And then other things that I further emphasize that I didn't in the last one. So breakthrough coaching is like the next step in helping coaches truly do their best work. Yeah.
So how long did it take you to form the idea and complete that book, Breakthrough Coaching?
Well, because there was a deadline, it just took, we signed the contract just a little over a year ago, so it's taken a year. So this says we only have 5 minutes left. Is that true?
No, yeah. We have until we have 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was going to shut me down. Okay, great. So, it's gotten shorter over the years. It used to be it would take me a year to write it, but they only gave me 4 or 5 months. And, the whole editing process and the rewriting always takes 4 months. And then it takes them a couple months to print it. So the whole process actually took a little less than a year, which is the quickest I've ever turned around a book. But, I had to be very intense in my writing, and I went away to places, different, places that were quiet outside of the city so I could write, so I didn't have a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So this book is for coaches or mainly for everybody? Can be for everybody.
Well, it's written for coaches, and there's a lot more tools and exercises in there than Coach the Person. So there's a lot of how do we adapt this? But I think anybody that works with other people, whether you're a leader or a parent, that these days we have to use a coaching approach in our conversations to really be curious and listen to people's stories and treat them as equal so they feel safe with you to tell you what's on their mind. So this is how to use a coaching approach, even if you aren't a coach, how you can improve your leadership, your connections with others. So because there's exercises and tools, a lot of them in the book that I think anyone can take it and adapt it to improve their relationships, their helping others to solve problems and come together in a more profound way.
So Marcia, I'm gonna ask this question. I know that you're not gonna like it because I need to have you to pick one of the tools that you wrote on the book that you really like. Okay, and you want to share with us so that we can hear from you, we can learn from you from that tool.
Okay. Two come to mind, but one in particular, when I started in the last book, I called it non-reactive empathy. But I've heard it called functional empathy, and I've come to call it compassionate and courageous empathy. That when people give us, their stories and what they feel about it, that we can fully take in and understand their stories. Empathy just means understanding. It doesn't mean feeling with. That I can, through my experience, fully understand how you see the situation and why you feel this way. But I don't get attached to your emotions, so I understand it and then I release it and stay present. And I certainly don't jump in to fix you. That's the worst thing I can do because then I make you weak. I just fully engage. And if people are intense in their emotion, just allow them to have the emotion. All emotions have an arc. There's the trigger, there's the intensity, and then it starts to diminish. And in the moment that their emotional energy starts to wade, that you can then say, so tell me what's going on with you. What do you see? And then they tell you, you could say, you got really quiet there. I couldn't tell. It felt as if you were sad. And I said that once to a leader, and he said, no, I'm not sad. I'm embarrassed for what I've done, well, for what I've done in the past that wasn't really helpful. I said, okay, so how is that going to change your leadership? I cannot stay in that place where I can explore with them what their emotions meant. If I, sympathize and take on their emotion and their story, I take it in, I understand it, and I release the emotional energy so I can stay compassionate and curious.
Compassionate and curious. Yeah.
Compassionate and curious empathy. Yeah.
All right. So you say there were two. So that's compassionate and curious empathy. One. Yes.
Well, I always I cannot tell you how important it is for you in any conversation to fully understand what does this person want that they don't have now. So when people come to us in coaching, and even employees to their leaders, and they have a problem, they have a challenge, and we're not there to solve their problem and their challenge. We're there to open their awareness as to what they may do next. I've recognized most people, they know what to do, they're just afraid to do it. I don't have to say what you should do, or what have you thought about it. I want to hear your story first. So tell me how you see the situation that's making it a challenge for you. And then I listen to their story. And within the story, there's key words and phrases and repeated things that are most important to them. And the words after but, I really want to connect with my team better, but they're so upset about what's happening in the company, I can't. So it's the but that demonstrates the fear. It's the should that demonstrates the conflict. So I listen to their story and I share back what I'm hearing. And I could be wrong, but the sharing back helps people to feel seen, heard, and valued. And they'll go deeper with you when they feel seen, heard, and valued. So do not jump in and tell them what to do. Help them feel seen, heard, and valued. And eventually they'll tell you what it is they want, and then you catch that. And I hear what you're saying, that you think it may not happen, but this is what you want. Is this what you want to work on to create or change? And then I have to see the picture of what you want and never assume I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So if you say I want better relationships, what do you mean by better relationships? What does it look like? What would you like as an outcome? And who would you be if you were in that moment and you had a good relationship? I need to understand those things first. So I have a tool on what are some of the things you would ask and how you can get into helping them feel seen and defining what they really, 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 really want, which they don't even know how to articulate. They know how to tell you the problem, but they don't know what they want instead. So don't ask them, what do you want out of our time? You have to pull it out of their story. So the tool is on how do you pull out of their story and then confirm with them, this is what they want. And often they'll say, that's not it, it's something else. Great, then we go deeper. So that's the second tool.
Wow.
Really getting to the true desired outcome.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, that will be it. They'll have the awareness that solves their problem when you get to what they really want to create.
Marcia, I believe that whoever get into a conversation with you will definitely have their amazing light bulb moments because of the arts that you have at the moment, and at your skill to listen in and then to pull out the information that's important and validate it again with them to make the conversations really, really enjoyable and emotionally attached also. So it's good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know what? I keep working at it. I was watching some demos that I did just 4 years ago, and then I'm like, that's awful. So even yesterday I had to watch 3 demos, and I was like, why did I say that? So because it's a path of mastery. It's not a path to mastery. And I learned about mastery. I took a martial art for years, and they always said, no, you never get to be to the end of the path. You're always moving on the path of mastery. It's the same with coaching, that we can always move forward on the path of mastery. So I'm never going to be the perfect coach. So how can I learn and grow myself and then share that with others? So I'm very excited about seeing people have a light bulb moment.
And I bet in a few years' time, you're going to see something that need to improve and create a new book to make breakthrough coaching even better.
Maybe, we'll see.
Marcia, I have two last questions for our conversation today. All right. And in this conversation, you mentioned the word thinking a lot. All right. And my wife and I, we've been on the quest to help people to improve their ability to think, because we both believe that our thinking capability these days is, diminishing because of a lot of reasons. So if we can ask experts on how they think and how they help themselves to improve their ability to think, so that people can listen to those advices and can learn and apply, that would help them to think better. And that is a starting point for change. So the question for you, Marcia, is how have you been improved your ability to think over the years?
Well, I have to say that I'm grateful for my cultural background, because one of the things that I was taught very young, a part of Jewish tradition is that we question everything. Now I drove my teachers crazy. They hated me. I always had to sit in the corner because I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe there's another way to look at this, And they were the experts, so they didn't like my questioning. But it's a part of we had a value of learning and going to school, and always questioning. Is this truth or not? Is there another thing that we've understood? So maybe the truth has changed. So I think that always questioning what's missing. If somebody were to argue with me, what would they say? If I were wrong, what would I be wrong about? So I question. It's the questioning that helps me to learn. Not just the reading of books, and because a lot of times when you read articles or social media, you're just looking to confirm what you know. So I need, and that's what coaches do. I disrupt your thinking. So it's going to be a little uncomfortable in my coaching. My third book was The Discomfort Zone, and I wrote that for leaders. Discomfort is a part of learning. That means we're letting go of what we knew, and that's uncomfortable. The brain doesn't like that. And to open to what else is possible. So I help other people I disrupt their thinking and make them a little uncomfortable to open them up. But again, it's what I had learned, that maybe I don't know what's the right way, and to question. So I think that's how we expand our learning, is to say, I don't know. What do you think? And take in other ways of seeing things, and then you can go back to your own way, but at least question it.
Thank you very much. My conversation with our speakers normally ended up by a question about the future, but I will change that approach with you. If you had a chance to talk to yourself, your teenage self, your 18 to 20 years old self, and you had a word to that young Marcia, what would you tell her?
I wouldn't change anything, because the journey that has brought me here today was the journey. And everything, that dark time was not a dark time. I learned about people in a way I never would before. But I would just say, just know that everything you go through, there's an important lesson to learn. Hold on to that lesson, because it's going to be important for other people as well. So look at every situation and ask, what am I learning from this?
Wow. Thank you very much. You met a lot of angels in your life, and now you're an angel to many people in their lives. So
Thank you.
you help
Thank
leaders
you,
to
huh?
get better so that they can lead their organization better. They make their employees' lives better, and we thank you for doing that, making the world of work better for everybody. So when they come home, they can have a better conversation at the dining tables, and
I
build
hope so.
hopes for their children, the generation that soon come into the
Yeah.
workforce, right? So thanks for doing that,
Yeah.
Marcia. I hope to see you in person one day, and I
I
really
hope so
look
too.
forward to it. Either we go to America
Yeah.
in our next trip, or if you travel to Asia and we had a chance to meet, that would be so lovely, right?
I would love that too. Yeah.
Thanks a lot
So stay in touch, please.
Thanks a lot for being so kind to share your stories and a lot of learning lessons in this conversation today. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you enjoy it too, Marcia.
Oh, totally. Thank you, huh?
Thank you very
You're
much.
really nice.
You have a beautiful day. Okay?
Yeah, you too. Or you have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.